Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Brian. We're going to continue on and wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Hamid. This is a performance of an Indian classical rag, which is somewhat equivalent to a composition in Western classical music, but with more leeway in performance. There are no words, only sung musical notes. This is one of my favorite performances in the genre from my favorite vocalist. His style was idiosyncratic in the sense that he sang in a slurred, almost lullaby-like manner, in contrast to his peers, who sang with more forwardness and articulation. He was still one of the greatest virtuosos, but in a more understated sense, and I think this would be a great introduction to Indian classical on your channel. To me, no music is as psychoactive. So let's dive into this. The vocalist performer is Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan. We're going to be checking out Raga Rageshree, which is the raga in question. It is 29 minutes almost, so let's dive in and see what's going on. I'm kind of curious when this was recorded. And the production's making it a little difficult to dig into all of it, but that might not have been able to be helped. I've noticed the melody line tends to sit around almost like a root note, but it's not usually at the bottom of the chord. It's more like a key note in the middle of the chord. And the vocals will either slide up into it or come down to hit it, but there's a lot of dancing on the way to landing on this key tone. There's a lot of flourish to lines. And from what I can hear regarding instrumentalists, they don't change or move, at least in the 6 or so minutes we've been listening so far. Well, there's a new idea right there. But for the most part, it seems to be rather static structurally, which almost makes it feel like a jazz solo section if the vocals are improvised. Interesting, the instrument behind is mimicking the vocal lines about half a bar behind. So either that instrumentalist is exceptionally good at mimicking ideas, which it's possible. I think there's only like 5 or 6 notes at play here, and they're all within the same octave. But I think it's more likely that this is pre-composed. There's kind of very little in the way of harmony, at least in the way that Western music would define it. We have a lot of shimmering in the backgrounds. Part of that is the timbre of the instruments, but another part is just the frequency at notes are being played. It is sort of laying down a harmonic idea, presenting the chords present in, or the notes present in the chord or in the raga. But it also feels more texture than harmonic as far as the information it's presenting to me. It's almost like an ornamental bit that just doesn't stop. It's there for the flourish, for the flavor, but not to provide any basic information. Again, coming at this from a very Western perspective. It's even interesting from a rhythmic perspective, particularly the percussion instruments. Again, from a Western perspective, the percussion isn't really keeping the rhythmic time. It almost feels like the vocals are. The rhythm is sparse enough that it sort of just accents the timbre of the percussive instruments, adding to the overall sound of it, but not being the timekeeper. The last section was filled with a lot of wild, quick jumps. Pitch-wise, just wide intervals, quickly moving between two notes. I'll be honest, it sounds unusual to my ears, but given the precision of it, I can't deny the skill required to do it. It's interesting too to listen to the placement of his voice. As he rises and falls in pitch, it kind of moves from being throaty to forward placed to nasally, and it's really interesting to listen to the timbre of the vocals change as a line is being delivered. One of the few sections so far with two instruments playing the same thing, not delayed, not doing a canon of sorts. I think it's a rare moment so far that I'm certain is pre-composed. Oh, I guess the twist could be that he's playing the instrument and singing. I hadn't considered that. A really interesting part there. It's interesting to hear the rhythmic flow of the vocal lines too, the ones that are less flourishy than this bit right here, and how they play off of and around the percussion accents. I'm really curious how they're going to wrap this up. They're not. See, I was curious how they were going to wrap that up because of my relationship to the music. And I want to preface this so I don't have to say it over and over and over and over and over again. What I'm going to say in this analysis comes from someone who is primarily educated in, exclusively educated in, and primarily exposed to Western music. So a lot of my observations I don't think are going to be quite applicable to what is going on here, but it is the closest analogy I can craft based on my musical knowledge. So with that said, I was curious how they were going to wrap it up because there doesn't seem to be any direction here. I'm listening to chord progressions, rhythmic ideas, the flow and pacing of melodies. This is normally where I get my information of how long an idea is going to be, and if we're coming up to ending an idea and moving on to another, or finishing the track altogether. The cues and landmarks I typically look for are completely absent here. The song, to my ears, is one idea without a beginning or end. It simply just continues to exist, and I suppose at some point they just stop playing. But even with this 28-minute and 50-second excerpt of the song, they just fade the track out. We haven't reached the end yet, so I'm still really curious what the ending to this sounds like. Because in my mind, the only thing I can see is to stop playing it. Just no ending, really. You're just not continuing to play the idea. And so this kind of takes me to my next topic, which I alluded to a little bit in the reaction, is that it is just an A section. When I listen to the harmony, which is kind of non-existent, we'll touch on that in a second. I listen to the rhythmic passages. I listen to chordal progressions, harmonic progressions. I don't really hear any of that. It's sort of everything has what they do for like 2 bars worth, maybe, and they just do it over and over and over and over. There really isn't much of a progression to it. It's simply a state of being. The only movement I can say that I hear is in the vocals and the instrument that played alongside the vocals. I don't know what it was, or else I would call it by name. It was definitely a string instrument of sorts, though. They had flows, movements, obvious starts of ideas and ends of ideas. But once again, there isn't much of a progression to it. I can see where a concept ends and a new concept begins, but functionally, it all feels the same. It's an idea that doesn't develop. We just hear hundreds, if not thousands, of variations on the idea. And again, it's quite possible that somebody who is educated in this, or even just listens to a lot of classical Indian music, they see and hear things I don't. But it's quite clear to me, at least, that utilizing um, my Western music knowledge and trying to find the same landmarks and derive the same information out of this song, it's not it's not providing me any information, and it's probably giving me an incorrect interpretation of it. In fact, it's like I'm using an old dialect or just a different dialect of the language. Everything sort of makes sense. I can make out the syllables. The pronunciation sounds fine as well, but the translation, the sentences I'm reading, they don't make any sense at all. And it's because I'm using I'm listening to it with the wrong dialect, with the wrong language, with the wrong dictionary. So to me, the song just kind of turns into background music, at least for 80% of it. It is, well, let's discuss this real quick. I have cursory knowledge of classical Indian music. Let me know if you're familiar with any of this, how wrong I am. Don't take anything I'm about to say as gospel. I could be a little wrong on some of this, and even if I am right, I'm sure it's going to be introductory level and missing nuance or detail. Ragas are kind of like Western chords. It's a collection of notes, but each raga also has more specificity to it. I believe there are some composed elements to each raga. This raga, Rageshree, has elements in it that generally you have to play in order to perform the raga correctly. And I believe there's also cultural significance to each raga, like this raga itself would only be played at specific events, circumstances, or times. It isn't like Western music where you just say, oh, I'm feeling kind of bluesy, let me use a minor key. Let me play in some minor chords. You don't choose the chords for your song, you play the chords that, or the raga that's appropriate for the situation. Um, for a specific event or a specific time of day or something like that. And so I do kind of get the notion, and again, this may be a bit of an uneducated take, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the notion that these ragas are designed to be played during events, and thus they kind of do take on a little bit of a background element to it, which is also, I think, what is beneficial about the fact that they don't really have a stopping point. They just continue on until the event or celebration or whatever is over. And so, me kind of putting it off to the background a little bit might actually be part of the intent, maybe. But what throws me off on this is the lead lines, the vocals and the instrument. They call themselves to the spotlight constantly. And it could just be that the music is designed to be background sound for the vocal work to be present. But it could also be that this type of vocal work, which is quite jarring for me and striking, it definitely calls my attention to it, isn't as so for someone familiar with the music. And so maybe the vocals aren't as ear catching to them, and maybe it does fit into the background just like the music does for them. Regardless, though, there is that vast disconnect between the rigidity, repetition, and single element of the music against the frequently altering and changing and evolving melody line coming out of the vocalist. Now, with that said, I suppose we should discuss the vocals real quick. As I mentioned, to my ears, there is something very unique to the vocals here. I'm used to hearing some of these gaps just from listening to Indian music in general, but the gaps, the note intervals utilized here and the frequency of them are things I don't think I've heard before. And so there is an element to this that I immediately think, oh, this is different. This is the technique pushed to some extremes. Again, maybe just extreme for me. I have very limited exposure to this vocal style. But again, the speed of jumping between these notes and the distance between the two notes, it makes it sound exceptionally difficult, especially given the precision that's necessary to move between the two notes rather than just to slur between a bunch of vaguely high and low tones to actually hit these notes as quickly and precise as he's doing is bonkers. To put it in a very academic term, I can't imagine the level of training and muscular control, just full uh, vocal cord dominance to do this consistently over the course of hours, maybe. The endurance is just another aspect of it. And like I said, to my ears, it's unusual. But there's a ridiculous amount of skill here that, as the few times that I was genuinely taken off guard by the sound of it, I was quickly reined back in and reminded of the utter skill here and the beauty of it. It takes a different ear, much like learning or listening to a new genre for the first time, and maybe it's just not something you enjoy. It's something that you don't really like. There's the process of listening to it more and understanding what it's doing and getting to know the nuance of it, and slowly you'll learn to enjoy it. This isn't even just an acquired taste kind of thing. Pop is one of the most popular musics, and a lot of metalheads don't like it. It takes time to acclimate to what it does and how it says things and its rules and stuff like that. Every music is an acquired taste. And so I think this is something that just with more time I would come to appreciate even more than I already do. But right now, like I said, the vocals are they are a bit disruptive at times, to my experience personally. They take me out of the music, and it's usually the more striking ideas. But like I said, there's an appreciation of the skill that tends to override that immediate being pulled out of it. I think that's going to be it. For a 30-minute song, as I mentioned, it kind of does one thing. The one concept I didn't talk about is the duet between the vocals and the string instrument. We heard a bit of a canon idea at the beginning, although it almost felt like follow the leader, given that I still feel there's a massive improvisational element here. I don't know that for sure, but there's so few elements in here that I feel are distinctly pre-composed. Given the length of it and sort of the feeling of melodic phrasing, I hear a lot of American jazz, specifically jazz solo sections in here, and I think that's what leads me to get more of an improvisational feel for some of the vocal work. But there are several sections where the vocals and the instruments line up in their melodies perfectly. And again, it could be that he's playing and singing simultaneously, which just dawned on me that's like an entirely different level of skill if that's what's going on. But at least with the follow the leader idea, the canon concept of one person does one thing and then trailing behind it by a couple of beats or maybe an entire bar, in this case it's a couple of beats, is another instrument or person playing the exact same line behind them, just delayed by a little bit. So we do have that canon towards the beginning, and that's the relationship between the instrument and the vocals continues on throughout the entire track. Whether it's a canon or it's never harmony though. Sometimes they play together, but they're always playing the exact same pitch. It's texture layering at that point. There's very little in the way of melody. Oh, the percussion too. They're not there to keep time. They feel like they just accent specific beats that tend to line up with beats accented by the vocal line, the main melody as well, in a way that just creates a nice level of ornamentation. So we don't really have a metronome element here. I feel like the vocalist keeps the time through the melody. We don't really have harmony here. We do have the presence of the notes of the chord or the raga, but it's not really done in a way that creates a progression. It sort of just creates the vibe, the feeling of the collection of notes without ever really being anything more than atmosphere. It's usually the harmonic element is going to be foundational in Western music, and here it's not. It's ornamental almost. It's it sits around the vocal line instead of under it to support it. It's again, my entire conception of music doesn't really do a lot to help me to understand how everything's working together here. At best, I can poorly translate it, but the translation doesn't come out very good. Yeah, I think that touches on just about everything. A really good moment for me to get exposed to this, though, at least in an academic perspective like this. I did learn a little bit of classical Indian music when I took world history course in university, and I've actually been to one Indian celebration. Um, it was a coming of age celebration for a friend. I don't remember the name of it. It was lengthy, much like the music. These The culture, it seems to be really big on these large, lengthy ideas, ceremonies. I could be wrong, could be extrapolating that poorly. Don't have enough data to properly say that that's how it is. But and I listened to some music, but again, I wasn't there to analyze the music. I was there for a friend. So, but I've never really gotten a chance to dig into the music like this, and I appreciate it. I'm kind of curious how everybody else feels about this, and doubly curious about any comments that are going to help me understand this. These are my thoughts on, I just lost his name, Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan's take on the Raga Shri Raga. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, your opinions, perspectives. Did you stick around for the entire thing? If you did, let me know your experience with it. If you have more information, if you're uh, more well versed in this and you have any extra information to give me, especially if it's just to add on to my information or to correct me on anything that I might have said that was incorrect or just not fully fleshed out. Let me know all that down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you to this menu. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, and a link to the Discord server, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but we will be back tomorrow with our penultimate exploration in our studio versus live theme. I know in the last video I said it was going to be our last one, but that's because I was thinking it's our fifth, and we always have 5 for the theme, so I miscounted there. But we are having a 6th one. So this is our penultimate exploration. We'll be looking at the band at the drive-in, if you want to check that out. That'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC tomorrow night. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.